Hello everyone, welcome to this episode of SNEED-CAST. Today we're going to be decoding the code, and in this case we're going to be learning all about lot codes. To explain everything, we have none other than our VP of Technical Services, Charles. So, hello Charles, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Glad to be here.
Of course, and if you just want to jump right into it, let's start with the basics. What is a lot code?
Lot code is a group of numbers or letters that a company uses to identify a particular batch of their product.
Okay, and then out of curiosity, because obviously we deal with so much traceability information, is a lot code the same thing as a batch number, or is it different? Because I hear those two terms like interchanged.
They are fairly interchangeable.
Okay. How is a lot code different from other numbers, other barcodes, other QR codes?
So a barcode is typically an identifier for the product. It can have other information in there. You've got GS1 barcodes that'll give you information such as production dates, plant numbers, and things like that. But a lot code is specific to a particular batch. It doesn't. You don't always use the same number over and over again. It's going to have a certain point where that number is going to change for one reason or another. It could be a certain allotment or certain day, certain week, but that's all dependent on the company and what it is they're producing.
Right. And how do they help in terms of like quality control?
The example I like to give to customers when they're first getting into this is a pharmaceutical company. Let's say that somebody makes aspirin or something like that. They know that the particular batch that they're putting together, the quantity of the product, is going to produce a certain number of aspirin tablets. So they know that at the end of that batch, they have made another one, and they're going to make another one. Well, that one batch has a particular code, and the next batch, the next lot will have a different code. That way, if something happens, they can always go back and know which ones that came from, so that not every aspirin that they've made for years has to be recalled or anything.
Okay. And then, again, out of curiosity, whenever I'm in the grocery store, obviously it's fairly common to see lot codes, but are there other industries aside from like CPG that use lot codes?
Well, like I've already said, pharmaceutical,
Right.
agricultural, and then even in a lot of manufacturing, because when you're dealing with plastics, again, those are all formulations. So as somebody's putting the different components together, they're doing it in particular quantities. So you've got a different batch that's happening, and that can be multiple per day or one each day, and so along those lines.
Okay. And then how is it that the FDA and the USDA regulate lot code information?
They really don't regulate it a lot, other than it needs to be there. They leave the record keeping up to the companies. It's more regulated in your pharmaceutical as far as the necessity to keep those codes and make them available to government representatives when called for or asked for. But outside of that, most of them are company specific, or in the industry that they're in, a particular. I'll use grocery stores, for example. A large grocery chain may demand it out of their vendors to make sure that they always have traceability.
And then if you can help us break down an actual lot code, because again, as a consumer, sometimes we just see the numbers and it's like, okay, what do they mean? In this instance, we have a lot followed by 6 digits and then followed by a letter. So in this case, it's lot 230928A. What does each part mean?
Well, of course, lot is going to identify that that's the particular lot number, so it tells you what you're looking for. In this particular one, most likely the 23 is going to indicate the year that it was manufactured. The 9 would be the month, and the day would be the 28. A could be a plant number. It could also be a shift number if they only have one plant. So there's a variation. One of the things to understand about this particular lot number is companies can use any sort of date format. If they want to use a Julian date in there, a week number, they can assign days of the week different letters, or months different letters than what we would think that they would have. So it really is up to the company on how they want to do it.
Right.
There's no given decoding sequence. It helps everybody to look at a particular lot number and break it down. since I've been doing this for a little while, we'll just leave it at that, a little while. Going into the grocery store is kind of fun to see sometimes if I can figure out their lot numbers, and look for specific indicators. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't, because again, a lot of times they've got somebody in the decision chain that has decided, one way to do it, and those that want to make sure that nobody else has the information on how to decode that and understands what they're doing, they'll make it random numbers and assignments, just like code breaking.
And then, again, you have experience within the industry. You can obviously sometimes either guess or you automatically know what the lot number stands for. But why is it that there's no universal standard so that all consumers can, I guess, grasp this idea of a lot code?
Again, because it's not regulated, it's the companies get to come up with it as is. And some companies don't want you to know what that is, simply because for instance, let's go with that aspirin scenario again. They want to sell the product that's on the shelf. A lot of people will go and look for, I want the freshest, newest product, which is understandable, but the shelf life of that product could be more than what is stated is 2 years. It could be 5 years, and so there's no real difference between a 3-month time span and those. And so having that decodable, does that make a huge difference for the consumer? In the end result, no, but it does make sure that the company's still able to trace it, and it makes sure that when you're grabbing something off the shelf, it's the last consideration as to when that particular product was produced. Again, it's really for the traceability of the company, and at this time, not necessarily for the consumer, but that could change.
Right. And then I know you mentioned that you can obviously embed things like your date, your month, what plant it was put together in, the shift. Is there any other information that can be embedded into that code?
So there's a great example that happened a few years back, and this is it was produce, and thanks to the evolution of lot numbers and previous losses by the company. When I refer to previous, the company had to do a complete recall of a particular product, which cost them millions of dollars. A similar instance happened, and just a couple of years later, they had changed their batch procedures and lot procedures. They were actually able to trace the infected batch or the bad batch all the way down to the farm that it came from. So they knew exactly which farm it came from, which production line produced it, so exactly which stores got that particular lot. So as opposed to doing a nationwide recall, they were able to go to specific areas and specific markets, have those items pulled and refresh those items with good product, which as before was millions of dollars, ended up costing them only tens of thousands. Huge difference in for the company overall, health-wise.
Right. And then Charles, seeing as though you're our main tech guy, I know this question can honestly go on and on. How can having an inconsistent coding system cause problems down the line?
That's if you're not getting consistent codes, and if your coder's not keeping up with the necessary changes, like some of your coders will have it built in there so that we'll again reference the example of the aspirin again. If you know that it's going to produce 500 products, or and it's going to have to code 500 times before it changes over, you can have a coder that automatically on that 500th one will switch to the next number, because it knows that that's where the next batch should begin. So that's one of the ways to make sure you're consistent in getting your different batches and encoding properly and keeping track of those. Now, if your ink isn't right and that rubs off, that again limits the traceability if somebody ends up getting sick or injured because of a product. And that code is not visible, or again it's rubbed off, or something's happened to it. That's when you can run into problems, because now how do you trace it down? And now that company's got to find a way to do it, or they've got to do a complete recall.
And then talking about recalls. Obviously, as a consumer, when I hear recall, I think, okay, this product, like something's gone wrong with it, trying to pull it off the shelf. But we're going to be talking about two different ones. So targeted recall and then blanket recall. What are the differences? So
a targeted recall is like I was talking about previously with the produce. That allows them to go in and say, okay, we know that this particular batch of spinach or oranges or whatever it is. This came from a particular plant, and we know that this plant just distributes to these particular areas. If they don't have that information, then they kind of have to do a blanket recall, because if they've got, say, one orange grove or one spinach farm that is delivering to multiple plants, then they may not know where the contaminated batch came from.
Right.
And so, as opposed to potentially putting more consumers in danger, they're going to just recall everything off of the shelves.
Okay.
And that's going to be your blanket recall, which is very costly, and that ends up with your fast food restaurants not having tomatoes on hand, or lettuce or spinach or something along those lines. And when you go to get your burger, you want to have you want to have your fixings on there.
Right. And then talking about, again, recalls and the difference it can make to have a lot code, how big of a financial difference can it make? And then how big of a reputational difference can it make?
Huge. So both of those, when you're talking about financial, again, it can be just a few $1,000s or tens of thousands of dollars compared to millions of dollars, and then a very specific recall, which can be done very quickly, also limits the reputational damage to the company. If you've got a large distribution network and your product is going nationwide, and now you've had to pull all of your products off all of the shelves, getting consumer confidence back can take a very, very long time. A lot of people will think that they'll just get it back out there and it'll recover very quickly. People are used to buying it. No, when people have a bad idea in their head about it, it can be detrimental to the company, and in some instances has taken years to get back, if not put the company out of business.
Right.
Today's episode on lock codes is brought to you by the SNEED-CAST Infinity, the smart, connected inkjet printer built for production lines that never slow down. With wireless control, you can manage every Infinity printer across your facility with just one device, whether that's a laptop, phone, tablet, or a control room PC. It prints high-resolution date codes, lock codes, barcodes, and logos on glass, plastic, metal, boxes, and more, even from a 10mm throw distance, so you can code products without perfect alignment or close contact. And thanks to maintenance-free thermal inkjet technology, you'll get crisp, reliable prints without the downtime or the service calls. If your operation needs coding that keeps up with production, then it's time to think about the SNEED-CAST Infinity. Learn more at sneedcoding.com. Thanks so much.
So we obviously see the difference that it makes to have a lot number, to have it for your products, your company, your brand. What happens when coding goes wrong? When codes are missing or when they're inconsistent?
Again, that can lead down to traceability issues for the consumer and for and for your grocery stores or your pharmacies or anybody else that's carrying that particular product. They want to be able to identify what the bad batch is, where it came from, and get that problem taken care of as fast as possible. So, if a coder or somebody's coder is not changing the batch, as opposed to only recalling one batch, they could go out and it could be multiple batches that they're having to recall because the coder wasn't maintained or wasn't programmed properly, or if it's inconsistent, again, it can be illegible. So you end up with that same problem of not being able to trace down what it was, and so a problem that could be solved in a matter of days or a week can end up taking months, and time is money. So that the cost continues to escalate.
Right. And then with your years in the industry, have you seen bad coding, or what has been like the worst instance that it's caused a crisis, it's caused panic mode, anything that comes to mind? In my years in the industry, and also just my years as being a consumer, the worst thing that I've seen is the large scale recalls, and a lot of that was due to the companies not having proper traceability. It's one thing to put a date code on a product, but if you're if you've got a batch of oranges or spinach or aspirin or whatever it is that it takes multiple days to package, then that singular date doesn't encompass enough to tell them which part of the products were contaminated or bad, and so now they've got to go and try to research through their records
how long it took and how many dates do they have to cover, where did all those products go. Again, because not if you're just, say, putting a date code on something, such as when it was produced or what the expiration date is, the traceability declines considerably. You're at that point, you know what approximately, if it was, say, an expiration date, approximately the date that was produced. Or of course, if it's a production date, you've got that's evidenced there. But you don't know exactly where it came from. You don't know which plant or farm or wherever that particular product came from. In the case of, say, a pharmaceutical, they may be getting supplies from from a vendor, and that particular batch from that vendor was contaminated. If that's the case, and depending on their record keeping, they're not able to trace that down. Again, you end up with a large scale recall, as opposed to something that's finite and you can handle very quickly. But it's thankfully today it's traceability initiatives are all over the place. A lot of them are pushed by the actual grocery chains. Some of it is government regulated. In other words, you need to keep the particular records for, say, pharmaceuticals. But when it comes to a lot of food products, the only thing that's really mandated is an expiration date. It's the stores that want to make sure that they're able to look after their consumers. Not saying that the producers don't want to. It's a matter of, at first it was a matter of how complex is it, do we have the right equipment? But when the people that are selling your product say, hey, we've got these initiatives, and they come together as a whole. There was a few years back, a little over 10 years ago, where a group of large grocery chains got together and went to a majority of their suppliers and said, hey, these are the things that we need to make sure are on your products and on your packages. Something for them that basically is traceability. It indicates where that product came from, when it was produced, and gives them the ability to know that they can just go to a particular set of stores and recover that product, as opposed to going nationwide or over a third of the country, depending on where the supply chain is at.
Talking about coming together as a whole, how is it that technologies like QR codes, barcodes, RFID are coming together to improve lot traceability?
Well, those make it easier to trace through automated systems. So a visual system that's looking for that's trying to read numbers and letters is a little more difficult than a QR code system now. And it's very easy to have a camera as you're passing it down a production line or through a door or something like that can pick up that QR code and log it into a system. And that QR code can house all kinds of information. RFID chips will have a particular tag number or identifier in them that basically does the same thing. A lot of those refer back to a file or database of some sort, as opposed to having all the information embedded on that RFID. Some will, but it's a matter of who chooses what that's going to access or what's going to be transmitted in that RFID. Again, the QR code could have a simple number in there that references a database or file number that has that information, or it could have the information embedded into it. So it's a matter of what they choose to do with that. It's just made it a lot easier, as opposed to somebody having to go through and each individual box of oranges or spinach or aspirin or whatever it happens to be, go through and write it down one by one. Okay, we received 50 of these, and each one, this is the lot code on each one. Now, if they're trying to do individual traceability, they can have a barcode scanner out there and just very quickly put it in front of the scanner, and that'll log each one. Or if they're going to use a camera system or an RFID system, it's very pass-through and allows a lot more automation to happen, which cuts down on the time.
And then talking about cutting down on the time, I'm pretty sure you can agree with me. I feel like we've seen tons of QR codes come out where it's like you can just scan a QR code on a product and you get instant information. How close are we to being able to scan a QR code and see a product's start to end?
We're very close with that. Now that's all a matter of whether or not the particular producer wants to give that information out. One of the leaders in that is in the cannabis industry. They've got a lot of information that they plug into their QR code system. It's funny to say to him today that, that the cannabis industry is one of those that's leading that push. But it is for the traceability initiatives, and because they want to know where it comes from. Your other growers and producers, as far as your farm products, your lettuce, your spinach, your cabbage, your broccoli, all those other things, they are, as part of their traceability initiatives, they have a lot of that information that's there available to their packagers and their distributors, but it's not necessarily at the point where they're going, hey Alexa, here's a QR code, you can see what farm this came from,
Right.
which packaging facility put this into its container, and then which distributor got it and sent it out to all the stores. And some of that is information that, if you're a geek like me, it's great to have. You really want to see it, but it doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people. Not everybody wants to know the trucking company or distributor that brought it to to your Walmart or your Kroger or whoever you're purchasing from.
Right.
But they do want to know, okay, how fresh is it? Is this is this batch good? Is this if I'm purchasing organic, is this really organic? Because that should also have that information built into it. So there is still a lot to come. And I'm hopeful for seeing even more of that, so that the consumer can have even more information at their fingertips. Again, just like the internet, we have way too much information available to us at all times. So it's a matter of picking and choosing which information is good information to have, and other information is just for geeks like me.
And I was going to say, just like QR codes are being seen everywhere, we're also seeing AI starting to creep into the industry, or having been creeped into the industry, as well as image recognition. How would you say that they're helping to improve the accuracy and then the verification of printed codes?
Right now, AI is it's such a fledgling stage that it's not having a huge impact on the market as of yet.
Okay.
But in the years to come, we can definitely see that it's going to be, as most of our environments, it is going to be starting to play a role. Now, exactly how the different companies and from your farms to your packaging facilities, your distributors, your stores, how are they all going to utilize that AI? In my humble opinion, a lot of it first is going to be data analysis. They're going to take a look at, where they're going to find the most efficiencies. How can they get products to you faster, especially when it comes to your fresh products? How can they make sure that they're not overstocking certain areas? So that, again, that aspirin, example where somebody may be looking at the lot code and trying to decide which, how much they need to have is, well, that store may just have an abundance of product on hand, so they're they're not all trying to store it in the back room. They put it out on the shelf. Well, if you've got an AI system, pardon me, that's monitoring that for you, then you can better manage that inventory, know what your flow rates are, in and out, so that you can keep the stock, keep the level on the shelves, and therefore your budget a little more consistent, and making sure that you're staying on top of what the consumer is looking for. All the way back to the facility that's packaging it, understanding where where they're getting the best product from, and being able to track that and make sure that their supply chain is maximizing its potential. Outside of that, AI is such a new thing, and as we've seen with so many tools, especially when it's app-based tools. It's really interesting to see what people are going to come up with, because as much as we think we know about, we can use AI for this or we can use AI for that, every day somebody comes up with something new that they can pull out of it, and it's like, that's pretty cool.
Talking about things changing, obviously traceability information continues to change, lot numbers continue to evolve. Where do you think, or what do you think they're going to look like in 5 years?
Oh, that is, again, a tough question, but I really believe that the traceability is going to continue to improve, that as AI grows, and more of the internet becomes as opposed to an information-based, it's an answer-based, and you're getting direct feed information. You should be able to see a lot more of the information on your products as where did the individual parts of that come from? The person that's producing that aspirin may not want to give you all their different vendors, but they may tell you, hey, your particular one came from this manufacturing facility in Pennsylvania someplace, or in Utah, or wherever that happens to be. And then you can go see what that facility looks like. Make sure that they'll have pictures online. You can see who the operators are that are actually doing the packaging there for you, and their smiling faces. And then also knowing that as consumers become more informed, that they're doing business with somebody that they want to do business with. That's the great thing is when you have choices. When you go to the grocery store and you've got 13 different brands of orange juice and 15 different brands of aspirin or whatever it happens to be, you've got all these choices, and you can know who you're buying from. And as an informed consumer base is a better consumer base.
Right. And then earlier you touched on the fact that maybe sometimes products are including information that customers aren't necessarily interested in knowing just yet. But I feel like a common trend nowadays is customers are looking for an increasing amount of transparency.
Right.
How do you feel that consumer transparency is going to continue to reshape traceability?
That's a great question. So that transparency is going to help in the area of data. It's going to allow the consumer to look and see how, when you're talking about a product, whether it's a generic product or a name brand product, you can go back to the manufacturing facility and determine, okay, how many different recalls have they had? What is their, what is not just your Google reviews or your different reviews that you can find online about those particular products, even more in depth about the product, their vendors, the lifespan, what all has taken place, and get to know the company that you're buying from even more.
All right, Charles, I know this question might make us a little nervous, might put us on edge. Do you feel like eventually printed codes are going to be a thing of the past, or do you feel like eventually they're just going to add into this larger layer of traceability?
They're definitely going to add into the larger layer of traceability. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. The different printing technologies that are coming out, people thought that laser was going to replace inkjet printers years ago. They've just molded into the overall infrastructure of coding. So if you think about I'll use an example of your salad. Some of it comes in tubs and it's got a film over top of it. Some of it comes in bags. That film and those bags more or less come to the company on rolls, and some of that's pre-printed. Of course, they want to have their company information big and bold on there. They want their brand out there. But some of the information, they may have a pre-printed QR code. Well, that's going to tell you a little bit about the company, and it's going to tell you a little bit about where you can find more information about that company, but it's not going to give you your expiration date. It's not going to give you your lot code or batch code. So all of that information has to be printed real time, because again, those batches change, those lots change, so do those expiration dates. So they all need to be real time information that's being put onto that product as it's being packaged and then prepared for shipment. So is the printing part of it going anywhere anytime soon? No. Does that mean that it's not going to change, and at some point there will be a new technology out there? Very possibly. I haven't seen that just yet, but I know for a good while we're still going to be all right because companies are growing that traceability. The ability to store more data is out there. The access for the consumer through their handheld devices or whatever else, wearable devices or whatever else they're deciding to look this information up on, is just going to be a more ready access for them to get information about the customer, or about the information about the business that they're buying from, about the product. Outside of that, understanding the traceability, where it came from, how long it's been there on the shelf, and again, any other research that they want to dive down into that deep rabbit hole on.
So in other words, we're okay, we're safe, we're not going anywhere.
Not anytime soon.
Okay, for someone that's new to the industry, or maybe they've been in manufacturing and packaging for a while, but they don't necessarily know why lot codes are so important, let's really drive that point home. Why are they so important?
Really, because you want to be able to know if something goes wrong with your product. None of us plan on anything going wrong. I don't ever plan on a printer breaking. We don't plan on on these certain things, but they happen. Everybody that's in a manufacturing facility knows that typically at the worst time, your machine is going to break down. So since we know we can't prevent it, the best thing that we can do is make sure that we track it and trace it, whether it's your maintenance on your machine or your product that you're putting out into the consumer world. You want to know when that was made, and that way, again, we talked about your targeted recalls versus your blanket recalls.
Right.
You want to be able to narrow down that problem as much as possible. So again, if you're whatever your product is, whatever widget you're producing, if you're doing it in batches and you want to be able to say, hey, this batch that I produced on September 23rd, 2023, that's the one that I know has an issue. You can go out and then you should know where all of the storefronts that received that product are at, be able to contact those individuals and get that product off of the shelf or get that back from them, what hasn't been sold, and then if necessary, reach out to the consumer base through whatever media that you use to let them know, hey, if this set of numbers is on your product, send it back to us. It's not safe. We need to we need to help you out and get you a fresh product, because we want to make sure that consumer isn't injured or ill or anything else like that. Safety is paramount, and again, you mentioned reputation earlier. It is a much better reputation for a company to go out and admit that there's a problem with a particular batch of products, thereby letting the consumer know that there's a high trust level there, that they're letting them know which batch is contaminated, that the other batches that they have are all in good order, there's no problem with those. And so when you can identify, hey, go to your cabinet, look at this particular set of numbers. If it's not there, you're good to go, you've got it, don't worry about the product. If you have that, then you can reach out to them, and that gives that company the opportunity to replace it for you and handle it as we would hope that they would, which is, hey, it's a bad product, no problem. Let's get that out of your hands. Let's get you a good fresh product in your hand, and everybody's happy at that point. It keeps, we've had the old story of corporations hiding things and trying to save money or whatever else. It saves a lot more money, and it saves a lot more face whenever they can go out and honestly say, there's a problem. We know exactly where it's at. Not everybody is affected. This is something that they can handle, and again, that's in today's open information society, that allows and enables trust that previously wasn't there.
Right. So obviously we're seeing an increase in trust. We're seeing an increase in keeping your brand safe, keeping your customers safe. Is there anything else that you wish that customers would know about those tiny numbers?
Just to look for them. Don't expect to be able to decode them on the fly. If the company has a QR code that's pre-printed on their product, you may be able to scan that, and they'll give you a way to break down that code.
Right.
Or if it's something as simple as looking at the numbers, you can tell it's a date. That'll tell you when it was produced, and whatever other letters are there. Your guess is as good as mine as to what those could represent for them. But that definitely it allows people the opportunity to understand that product is being monitored, it is being tracked and traced. And if you go looking for it and it's not there, let somebody at that store know, so they can put it in the back and return that back to the to the company that supplied it, or and gives you the opportunity to choose one that you can see that visible lot code on. So in the rare chance that it does happen, but you end up with something that's bad or contaminated, you have the information necessary to go back to the company with and allow them the opportunity to make it right.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Charles, and thank you for helping us decode the code.
Glad to help, and finally all these years of experience I can put to use.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this episode of SNEED-CAST. Like always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell down below to stay up to date with all of our great content, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.